Angie Pontani is a burlesque dancer, choreographer, and producer. She has been named the Italian Stallionette and crowned Miss Exotic World by the Burlesque Hall of Fame. She is a friend and frequent collaborator of the one and only Lady Gaga, and she's also worked with Donatella Versace, Snoop Dogg, and 50 Cent, and was featured in Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett's Great Performances special shot at Lincoln Center, as well as in the cover art for their Grammy Award-winning album, Cheek to Cheek. She is the co-producer of the New York City Burlesque Festival and has been shot by the famous photographer Stephen Meisel and graced the cover of magazines like CR Fashion Book, Page Six, and Glamour. Angie loves to share her Italian family recipes on Instagram as well as on her blog, and she lives in Brooklyn with her husband and band leader Brian Newman and their adorable daughter Cecilia. So please welcome Angie.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. You look so cute.
Oh, thank you. So do you both. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just so relieved that my headphones work because my tech support, my husband isn't here today. So I got on, I tested it. It's working.
Oh
we
my God.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
You're amazing. No, we always say like the tech is just the work. It's so cool to be able to do stuff from home, but it's so hard to be in charge of the tech. It's like,
oh, I know.
It's a whole other job.
And it was like, I luckily had like a team to do it with me. And then when they left after, like, it was a pandemic project, I had to do it myself. And I was like, oh, no. I'm like,
yeah.
Turn it off and turn it back on again. Like, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
So Angie, I have to like say I'm fangirling a little bit because I've been following you on Instagram for a while, and I have to give a shout out to one of my best friends from home, Alexis, because she's like your biggest fan.
Oh,
and
yes.
So hi, Alexis. So a few years ago, she was like, Alex, if you're not following this girl, like you have to be right now. She's going to be your biggest inspiration. Like she's Italian. She has big curly hair. She's a dancer. Like you're not even going to believe. So started following you, but I feel like I may have seen you at the Slipper Room back in the day, like before I started following you on Instagram. Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's definitely a possibility.
Okay. Love that. Okay. So I want to just like drop into the world. Can you explain what is burlesque for someone who has no idea?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at its core, burlesque is a form of the theatrical arts, distinctively American. Historically, it was brought to the US in the late 1800s by Lydia Thompson and her British Blondes, which were performing spectacle of ladies that would get on stage and do Shakespeare in tights. And they came to New York and they performed and just everybody went bonkers. It was essentially an excuse by these women who were trained ballerinas in that time to kind of like show off their legs, and they were wearing tights and everybody was freaking out, and they were doing comedy because they were doing these Shakespearean plays and this satire and this irony. So we fast forward, like Americans get a hold of it and we turn it into this spectacular that brings to mind names like Tempest Storm and Dixie Evans and Blaze Starr, this larger than life, like dramatized female form, just on display in all of its untouchable glory. But on the same time of kind of creating this beautiful imagery of like this supersized female form, burlesque retains its sense of irony and its kind of sense of theatricality, and taking all these things that you perceive as a norm and turning it on its ear. So in essence, it's retained its ability to laugh at itself. And this is me just speed history lesson here.
Thank you.
Yes.
But it's a celebration of, it was a celebration of this female form. And over the years, it has evolved into its own genre of performance that includes so much diversity in terms of where it's performed at, in terms of the people who are performing it, and in terms of the style that it's being performed in. I think it now and then served as like a reclamation of, taking control of your own persona, putting it on stage in the way that you want it to be perceived, and people just responding to it in a great way because it just has this amazing pure energy about it, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And I feel like that's the thing people lose if you haven't seen it in real life. Like people understand there's a sense of humor about it, and the people performing have a sense of humor about themselves. Like it's fun. It's not so serious.
Yes, it definitely disarms you. I think people who aren't really aware of what a burlesque show is, sometimes they're scared to go to it. You know, it's like you don't know what you're going to encounter. You're a little bit uncomfortable. You know, people in a sense tend to be uncomfortable about their sexuality in certain people. You know, so they're afraid of what it might be. But then when you get there, it's just instantly disarming because, as my dear friend Murray Hill always says, there's no fourth wall. We couldn't afford it. You know, so it's like the audience is part of the show and it's the wheel that helps drive it. And by seeing these shows, you just kind of lose all this uptight energy that you have. Like, who cares? We've all got boobs. We've all got butts. Shake them. You're not going to be able to do it for so long.
It's truly like any other art form out there, any other show that you're going to see. And like you said, it is that pure energy, that pure fun. And every burlesque show I've been to, I've seen a different style, a different body type, a different woman, a different type of thing up there every single time. And it's so inclusive and diverse and beautiful. And I've never been to a show that I haven't left just like my face hurts from smiling and feeling so good afterwards.
And it's really amazing too, because when you look at it through the history of time, and I've been in burlesque for over 20 years. So I've been around through so many phases of it. And when it first started in the 90s, you know, it was mostly women performing it. And it was still very edgy in the sense of you had these shows happening downtown with like Bonnie Dunn doing like these wild and crazy off the wall things. And the Slipper Room came up in the mid 90s. And you have a show where I started in called Dutch Wiseman's that was a very traditional review. It was essentially like a recreation of a Ziegfeld Follies with showgirls and dancing and kick lines and solo striptease and singers. And you had a couple of like the boylesque acts, like Tigger was around at that time. The Evil Hate Monkey came not soon after. So, and I felt at that point, like in the 90s, when it was coming back, it was almost in a backlash to this feminism that had kind of this narrative had taken over of like, well, if you ladies, you want to be in business, you need to put on a business suit, you need to get out there, you have to abandon your cleavage if you want to succeed in the world. So, and it was also the time where it was like the models were super thin and this airbrushing just started to get super bananas. And I felt like downtown kind of took that and we were like, I can be any kind of feminist that I want to be. Watch me take power and authority over my own body and spin these tassels all up in your face. If you agree with that, if you're okay with it.
if you consent.
If you consent. And I think that it then turned into that movement. Whereas in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, it was more of a vehicle to women actually having big jobs and big paychecks. And that was them claiming their power. Here it was us kind of saying, oh, the paychecks are smaller now, but the social message is great. And it's changed, you know, through every decade. It's amazing to see what it's grown to be.
What is your journey with burlesque? What was your first exposure to it? You're a dancer. What drew you to burlesque and how did you get started? What was your first sort of experience with it?
Well, my first experience was I was working at a barista at a cafe downtown. And a gentleman that I was working with was a dancer as well. And he said, you know, Angie, you've got to come and audition for this show, Dutch Wiseman's. It was probably like 94, 95. And I was like 17. It was ridiculous. And I was like, okay, I'll go. So I went to go see this show and I had never heard the word burlesque before. I did not know anything about anything. I knew who Betty Page was just from the imagery. So I went to go see this show. It was a totally illegal show. It was so New York. It was like on the second floor of this apartment building in Chelsea, and they had turned it into a nightclub. It was insane. And I went in and it was just like, my mind was blown because this is what I felt that showbiz was. I grew up, like my dad loves MGM Technicolor musicals and, you know, Rita Hayworth and Carmen Miranda, and he would make me sit with him and watch all of this. So this was my ingrained vision of glamour. So when I walked into that room, that's what it was. It was like a scene out of Gilda. Like the waitress had a champagne tower, like literally a headdress on her head. There was like this big Italian guy at the door with a fedora that did not seem like he was at a costume party, you know, like it was so amazing. And I walked through that door and it changed my life. I got the job and I started dancing with them. And that was it. I had a little bitty taste and I never left.
And you're like off to the races.
Yes, absolutely. Off to the races from there. And that, you know, it was really fortunate for me because that was the beginning of the neo burlesque movement in New York. And I was able to start off with that show where I learned so much, because it was and will remain, I believe, really do it yourself. And they did everything there. They wrote the show. They, had a choreographer. They had a beautiful costume designer. And it was superb. To this day, I say it was one of the best, most thought out shows that I've ever been in.
That's hearing so cool. That it's why we all come to New York, like that kind of show and that sort of space. It's like that is the quintessential idea of what we all have about New York. And
it was and it was amazing. And I was a child. I was literally, I think I was 17 when I got that, maybe 18. And I remember, I've always been it's not naive, but I get really excited about what I do. And when I got that gig, I was like, Mom, Dad, you have to come to the show. And my parents came. And in retrospect, I'm like, oh my Lord. I brought them to this illegal show in an apartment.
And they're like, oh my God.
Getting into strip tease, and I'm like, look, Mom,
I made it.
They smiled. They loved it. My mom went to check a couple times. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of the do-it-yourself thing, can you tell us about the process? How does it go from a seed of an idea to the costumes to the rehearsal to the performance? What is your process like?
It can be a bumpy ride at times. I find the way that my process works best is if I find a song, and that song will inspire the costume, and then that inspires the choreography. And for me to truly create a new act, it takes about 6 months from start to finish, to get the costume done, to edit my music how I want my music edited, and ultimately to do the choreography. Because you create this choreography in your mind, and then when you get your costume and your shoes and you put all the elements together, you're like, what were you thinking? You can't even walk, So then you have to redo everything to form around the costume. And then I take it out on stage. And even from that point, I have to change it, because everything changes once you get it on stage, and stages are so different and you have to get really comfortable with it. So I always say it takes me about 6 months to really create something that lasts for me. But it doesn't always work that way. I'm having a costume made right now, and I have no idea what I'm going to dance to. So we'll see what happens.
And do you have, are you collaborating with a director or anybody outside of yourself to make this all happen?
No, essentially the only collaboration I do is with my costume designers. And that's really it. And that's, one of the things that I love about burlesque as well. It's when I did first move to New York, I wanted to be a dancer, a singer, an actress. And I was going on all these auditions. I did good. I got roles and stuff, but I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to be her. I would never wear that. Or I don't want to dance in a basic black unitard. I was I know what I want. There's really only one role that I want. And that's just a more fabulous version of me. So burlesque enables you to create the way that you want to be portrayed and control all those elements around it, and it's I think I'm wrong when I say I don't collaborate with people, because I do. When I think through the whole process, it's yes, of course I work with my costume designers, but when you get to the space as well, it's always good to have a basic knowledge of your lights so that you can work with the lighting director or whoever is running the lights, because you have to think about the full image, and that's a big part of that image as well. So.
And will you film your rehearsals and watch back, or how are you getting your...
Yes, I film my rehearsals. I watch them back. And actually, my dear friend, the main attraction, is a burlesque dancer as well. So I'll send her this and I'll be like, am I pulling that off, or do I look crazy? And she'll tell me honestly. But I do record it.
You're choreographing everything yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Mm-hmm.
That's
and
wild.
One of the things in burlesque too is I'm not a huge believer in choreographing every 5, 6, 7, 8. I like to have what I call landmarks within the song. So I'll say, okay, I can do whatever I want here, but when I get here, this is that bump, this is that grind, this is where this comes off, this is the way this goes. Or if you're doing boa tricks or some fan work, that's more choreographed as well. But I always like to keep it a little bit loose so that you can interact with the audience, so you can move around the different stages and feel the spaces. Or if you're doing a floor show, to move around the floor. It's that organic nature of burlesque does not want to be, sealed in every 5, 6, 7, 8. She wants to be free, Right. And that's why she's fun, because anything can happen. And that's also why my favorite thing to do of all time is to work with a band, because you have no restrictions. You can just go out there and do whatever you want. And that's my absolute favorite.
And you know, they'll be there for you. They'll be with you.
Yeah. And they'll follow you, and a great band will follow you. They'll know where your bumps are coming. The drummer will see you winding up, you know, and they'll ride that train with you.
Right. Is there an insane costume malfunction story, or has there been anything crazy that's happened to you in the moment on stage where the costume part goes awry?
Yeah, I've had several. I mean, it's like, it's part of the jam, but I always say, like, my worst costume malfunction was what I call my reverse Janet Jackson. And I was doing a show, and this is like, there's no way out when this happens. When most corsets have a ribbon or some kind of rope that ties in the back. My gowns have metal zippers that typically go down the back. If your zipper gets stuck in the corset ribbon, you're just done. There's no hope for you. Like, it's over. It's over. So that happened to me once. I did, my whole zipper got stuck, and you're just on stage with it halfway off your body.
Oh, God.
And you just can't, because the ribbon is stuck in the zipper head. So it's pretty devastating. So I was with a band. The number ended up being like 10 minutes. I was able to stick my hands in and undo the busking in the front and then wiggle out of it. And it was not cute, but I did it.
Did the crowd go wild though after you finally got it off?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. You know, and then I've had other things happen where, like, you know, if the step is too big to get to the stage, maybe it puts too much stress on my, like, snap-on underwear and they just fall right off. Like, there's things like that. It's always something, but that's why I say too, like, when you get a new costume, it still takes so much time because you have to get used to it and you have to
It's almost like having a partner on stage. Like, there's another whole other thing on stage that you have to worry about.
I always say, like, I have to get to know this costume. You got to get to know it, and it's definitely true.
So then what happens when, okay, you're feeling your best self, everything's going great, you've got the costume, but then you get your period. And you're bloated and you're bleeding. Like, what do you do? How do your costumes work? How do you deal with that?
I cry and roll around on the floor a little bit.
Okay, good. So just like us. Good.
You know, I have my full mental shutdown because obviously it happens. And, you know, it is terrible too, because, you know, obviously I get very bloated and your costumes are made to fit to a T. Mm-hmm. So anything else adds that pressure and it can cause these malfunctions. You just don't feel comfortable. But something that I've learned through over 20 years of performing, and it makes me both sad and happy, is when I go out there and I'll come off stage and, you know, I'll be like, man, I was just terrible. I feel bloated. I feel miserable. I have cramps. And my husband or a friend in the audience would be like, I didn't notice anything different at all. So I think you just reach this point where you can pretty much, you know, sell it. And that's my job. So I guess that's good that I'm doing it. But yeah, there are days where you just feel terrible, you know, but then you look back at a picture and you're like, oh, I look exactly the same. I look happy. Like, why did I get in my head? That's the hardest part.
Right. And no one else is thinking about that. Exactly. Totally. No one else is thinking about it besides you.
Exactly.
You've had such a crazy long career in this. Are there some, I'm sure you have a million career highlights, but are there a few that you look back on and you're like, that was the most fun?
Yeah, there are so many. I mean, you know, and I'm not belittling any of the amazingness that I've been able to do, but like my favorite memories are after a show when the whole cast would go back to an Airbnb or something, and I would make like cacio e pepe at like 3:00 in the morning, and we're all sitting around in our pajamas, drinking wine and eating pasta. You know, those are the moments that, you know, especially after the past couple of years, I'm like, oh, I should have cherished those more. But I think some of my favorite performance moments, and I clearly have to highlight this, was I think it was 2014 that Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett did the PBS special Cheek to Cheek at Lincoln Center. And they called me and they were like, we want you to dance in the show, and we want you to bring like 3 of your burlesque best friends to do it as well. And that was just so iconic. I mean, we were on stage with this, I don't even know, a bajillion piece orchestra in Lincoln Center with Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett and my husband and his guys and Chris Body and with burlesque performers. And it was epic. It was just
unbelievable.
Yeah, it was
I can't
unbelievable.
even imagine.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was really amazing to be able to bring dancers from this art to that art and have it so seamlessly and beautifully work together. That was really fun.
So, okay, we have to ask. We know that Lady Gaga has now become a close friend and a colleague of yours. What's it like? What's she like?
She's amazing. I really, she's a lovely person, but she's just so inspiring because she works so hard, and she always finds that grit and finds that energy to make it happen. And I really think of her as a source of inspiration. She's amazing.
That's awesome.
I'm obsessed with her. I mean, I see it. You see it.
Yeah.
You see it. Tina and I are both singers. And, I also have a friend that went to school with her at NYU. And like, this is what everyone says about her is like, she's just the hardest worker. And you can see that. So cool.
And she has that Italian-American girl energy.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Okay. So your husband, you collaborate and work with your husband a ton. He's a musician. What is that like to work with your husband so much, to perform with your husband so much?
It's amazing. I mean, of course we're married, so it has an ups and downs.
Of course.
Brian, he is such a phenomenal musician, and his band is so amazing. And I have no greater joy than when we're performing together. Like I always tell him, like, I can't play anything. I tried to play piano. I tried to play the guitar. I have no musical talent. Like I can't even sing in key. I can remember the words to every song that I ever hear, but I cannot sing. So when I play with the band, and I've been playing with them for so long now, I literally feel like I'm a member of the band because we understand each other. Like I can look at any of them at any given time and they know what I'm going to do, and I'm so comfortable with them that I have the confidence to do whatever I want. But Brian and I, when we perform together, it's just, it's the best of the best. It's just, we're on the best ride together. We get up in Vegas, and our show in Vegas, we have this long runway, and I'll climb up the stairs and go up the runway, and he'll follow me with the trumpet. I'll take off my costumes, and he'll catch them. It's really funny because talk about costume malfunction. Some of my bottoms have magnet closures, and at one show it got stuck to his trumpet, and he couldn't figure out, like, why can't I get these underwear off my trumpet?
What?
That is amazing.
Are really strong. And it was just funny because he would take it off and it would snap back on, take it off, snap back on. But it's amazing. It's really, it's a dream come true. And I love working with him.
It's so cool.
You're also a mama.
Yes.
And what is that like, raising a child in show business while you're in show business? And what are some challenges? What do you love about it?
There's a lot of challenges. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can be brutal because I grew up with a mom and a grandmom, and that was always there. They're always there. And that's the mom that I want to be. And I leave her sometimes for a couple of days, and I literally get on the plane and I cry. Like I can't stand leaving her. It destroys me. And I don't ever want her to be like, my mom left me for 3 weeks, which I would never do. I go for like 5 days max. But
yeah.
It creates for me a lot of back and forth, especially now because she's in school. So it's like, we can't, before she was in school, I took her to Italy with me. We went on tour for a month. She would come with me to Canada. I'm lucky that my parents or my in-laws or my cousins, I can always find somebody to come with us. But it's really hard. And as she gets older, it gets easier in some respects, but it also gets more challenging in others because now she's creating her own life, and I want her to be able to have that and be here for that. So it's definitely a challenge. I look at Pink and I'm like, Pink, you have got it together. Look at you. Like, because it's really hard. I want to cherish every moment and be here for that. So generally I make myself insane just balancing it all.
Oh, I can't even imagine. And has she seen your show?
Oh yeah, she has.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Does she love it?
Oh yeah, she'll come with us to Vegas most of the time if she's off from school or if I'm running it back for a weekend. And she had been asking to come for a while, and I was always like, no. I mean, with my career, with what I do and having a child, I was always like, okay, I'm not gonna hide what I do from her. But I'm also not going to be obnoxious and be like, these are pasties. Like, it's like, I'm like, she's just going to figure it out on her own, just like everything else. And and I've just been very casual about it. So the first time she came out to Vegas with me, we went and watched the show, and Kalani Coconuts, because we had just arrived very late, and so we had Kalani Coconuts was dancing that night, and she's beautiful. And we went to go see the show, and Sis just looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing that ever happened. And then we went backstage, and Sissy sat in her lap, and she put her headdress on her, and she asked me no questions about anything. You know, she just loves it. She loves being there. She loves seeing the singers. She loves watching the showgirls. You know, and now she just tells everybody, my mommy's a showgirl.
Yes.
Aww. Is she interested in dancing or anything? Is she showing? Really? Okay. She's showing that kind of glimmer of like, ooh, this might be fun.
It's no glimmer. It's a total onslaught. It's like, I know. I was like, babe, listen, pediatrician, come on.
Yes.
Accountant, come on. No, she loves dancing. She loves singing. Yeah. She's playing the piano by herself. She can figure out. She started to play the other day, and she was playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and she just figured it out on her own. So, and she's an amazing artist. Like, she's just, we had our parent teacher conference, and they were just like, so, you know, your daughter is very artistically gifted, right? And we were like, yes, we know.
Yes. You're like, it's happening. We all know it's happening.
I know. But she loves it. She loves it all.
Oh my God. That's
awesome.
What was it like at the beginning? So like, what was it like when you were recovering from childbirth, like from that to the journey to getting back on stage again? Like, did you feel pressure? How did that go for you?
Well, the most pressure that I feel, and it's constant, is from myself, right? And when I was pregnant, I love working so much, and especially pre-cis, I was touring constantly. I was traveling, I was in and out, and I loved doing that. When I was pregnant, I said, you know what, I'm going to have her. I'm going to go back to work like 2 months later. I'm going to give myself 2 months, and then I'm just going to ease back into it. I worked almost up to the point that I had her. It was hilarious. And then after I had her, I got my ass kicked. I was like, whoa, I had no idea how exhausting sleep deprivation actually is, how nursing is so beautiful, but also very taxing. It's kind of like, nobody tells you like, hey, your boobs are going to start squirting every 3 hours. So keep that in mind, you know?
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Talk about costume malfunction. I mean,
right.
You know, I was fairly good I didn't really gain a lot of weight when I was pregnant. I stayed active throughout the whole thing, and I didn't really gain much weight, but my boobs were huge. They were insane. So I barely fit into any of my costumes. So they were all snapping off. And when I did go back to work, I felt terrible. I was exhausted. I mean, Sis, my daughter, has never been a good sleeper, but when she was a newborn, it was constant. So I would, go to sleep at 7, wake up at 11, go back to sleep at 1, wake up at 3, go back to sleep at 4, wake up at 5, and that was it. So like going to work after having a night like that was just misery, and I'd be in the dressing room nursing. So after I finished those commitments that I'd made before I had her, when my brain had no idea what it was getting into, I lightened up for a while. And it's very challenging. I mean, motherhood is beautiful and amazing, but there's always a part of you that misses your previous life. But I think life is about evolving through phases of life. Mm-hmm. And you make it work. Like what you want, you make it work. So I didn't really start going back to work again until she was 2. Like I did a couple of things here and there, but I didn't have the energy to put into performing at the level that I wanted to be at. Like I couldn't fit in my costumes that I really wanted to wear. I couldn't practice. I couldn't feel really secure in my performance because I couldn't give my performance the attention that I was used to giving it. Mm-hmm. So I did. I lightened up for a while, and then I went back when she got a little older, and it's still challenging. Like my husband travels a lot, and so what will happen is that I'm home and I'll have to travel, but then I have her alone and our psychotic dog, and I have to balance all of that while getting ready, packing for 2 people, figuring everything out. It's a lot, but you make time and you make it work for what you want to. It's just about adjusting those expectations.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's so inspiring for people to hear, because you have some because it is hard, but you're still doing it. And you have some very unique challenges, because it's not like, oh my God, you can be exhausted and just roll up to your desk job. It's like, you're an athlete basically, and your job is so physical. So I can't even imagine it requires so much sleep and strength. So it's just wild. It's so inspiring that you jumped back on, that you're still doing it.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of my friends, like, you know, I'll be doing the preamble to, you know, going to Vegas for a week or going somewhere or doing some big show. And my friends every day, I'll be like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is too much. I'm so done. And they're just like, and then I get back and I'm like, I love it. I love my job. Because, you know, when I get there, when I get the costume on and when I hear the audience and I get on stage, it's like, we call it Dr. Footlights. Like, the stage has this curative power and you find the energy, you know, and there's some nights where maybe you don't, you know, it's not perfect. Life is not perfect. You just have to find out what works for you. And I think the biggest lesson that I learned from having a child and keeping working is like, you can't hold on to these elements of the past that you want to recreate, because it's not about recreation. It's about cultivation and just keeping moving and keeping moving upwards and just keeping her on the prize. And I want her to see me work. I want her to see me make it work. And hopefully when she's older, it'll be a little bit easier and she can make it work even better.
Of course. I feel like she's having the coolest childhood and just getting to do so many cool, fun things.
Yeah, she definitely does. I always tell her, I'm like, sis, I hope you realize that this is not normal.
Yeah.
Most kids don't get to experience this. You are really, really lucky.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I watched your Instagram live with your trainer, which was super cool. And I've seen you're really into weight training and your body is so strong. Like you're so muscular. So what is your fitness routine? Why do you love weight training so much? How much time do you give it? Can you just tell us all about it?
Yeah, sure. I've been active my whole life. Obviously, I grew up dancing. I've always worked out. I've always done fitness. But it was after I had cis and I started to work out again. And I was so bored by it. I didn't want to do like Zumba. I mean, I love Zumba, but that's not all I wanted to do. It just wasn't working for me. So I started weight training and I love it. I can't express how much I love it. First of all, I don't overuse the word empowering, but I found it to be so empowering to walk into the weight section and just like tear it up. Like I really get a thrill out of going in there and moving these big weights around. It feels so good. And it's so amazing to acknowledge how strong and wonderful our bodies can be. Like for me, it's all about being strong. You know, I want to be able to I always tell Sissy, like, girl, if I have to carry you up a mountain, I'm carrying you up the mountain. You know, like I want to be able to meet any task that comes my way, you know? So I just find it to be amazing. And I work out 5 days a week. I try to, it doesn't always happen. And what I'll do is I do 15 minutes on the stairs. I despise cardio. I hate cardio, like, which is why unless I'm dancing, like that's totally different, but I can't do the treadmill. All I do is watch the clock. I can't do the elliptical. I don't like repetitive motion. I need to be stimulated. So I just do the stairs for 15 minutes and then I just go and do the weights. And, you know, when I was training with Deshaun, I have to build back up now because of the pandemic. I built a little gym in my basement, but I couldn't go up to the full weight scale that I was at. I was like, I bench pressed, I think like 140, I think, which is pretty substantial. No, it wasn't. It was a 120. And I could squat 225, like big weights, deadlifting like 175. It was amazing. So I'm building back up right now, but you just feel so good. It feels good to feel strong, you know, and it's great for your body.
And you have your own workout videos, is that right? Go aerobics?
Yes.
Okay, can we like find those? Where can we do those?
Yes, they're so vintage. There's little clips on YouTube. They're so ridiculous.
I'm dying.
Workout, but it's just, you know,
that's my kind of workout and video. I'm gonna find it on YouTube.
I watched one on YouTube. It was so good. I
loved
it.
They're hilarious. They're really fun. And we taught classes in the city for years that would be packed, like 50 people. Man. It was hilarious.
Oh my God, that's so fun.
Every once in a while, I'll do a class. During the pandemic, I started doing them for free on Instagram. I would just pop on and do a workout, and it was really fun.
Oh my God. Yes. I'm also super Italian, and I wanted to ask you, first of all, where in Italy is your family from?
My family is from Umbria, which is the center of Italy, which is kind of rare for people around these parts to originate from that part of Italy. But yeah, right in the center, Umbria, it's called the Valnarina. It's all these little valleys there that literally pretty much everybody from my mother and father's side is from there. My grandmother on my mother's side has a lot of family in Rome too.
Oh, cool. My family's all south. It's Sicily and Calabria. I'm like full.
More common. It's like it's very rare. We're like mountain people.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, I also learned that you worked there. Like you shot it. What was that like?
Oh, so much fun.
What did you shoot? What were you working on?
I was in a television show called Lady Burlesque, and I did a couple other documentary projects over there. I think it was probably around like 2010 to 2015. I was like in Italy so much. I was a frequent flyer, in and out multiple times a year, but it was so much fun. Like, oh, I loved it. And the Italian people responded to me so amazingly. They were like the original Italian. I had a news headline there. It said, Angie Pontani, all sex and spaghetti. And that's like the best press quote that I've ever had in my life.
That is the best.
It's such a Sophia Loren retro, like, oh my God. I definitely wear that with pride. I love that.
I was stalking your website and I saw that your merch, like you've got all these like awesome, like I want the crop top that says built by spaghetti. I'm like, yes.
I know. Yeah, everything. I love it. Italy's amazing and the audiences there are amazing. And I still have a lot of family there. So when we would go, I would go and visit everybody. I hope that picks back up because I loved working there.
Yeah, I've only been there visiting, so I can't imagine working there. It just must have been such a dream.
It was amazing, and this is like I love the Italian people. Like Italian Americans and Italians have, I think, one critical difference. Like Italian Americans, at least in my family, the obsession is work. You just work. Everything is work. You wake up and you work, whether it's cleaning the house, bleaching the concrete, ironing clothes, sewing something. Everything is just driven to achieving this goal. Italians in Italy, and we relax when we eat dinner, but it's still, everything is like, go, 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 go. You know, you're measured by your hustle, I believe, in Italian American culture.
That's exactly true. My family is the exact same way.
Yeah. It's definitely, I strive to find that balance now because I adore my parents, but I would like to decrease my daughter's, like insanity about that because I still have it and I check myself constantly. I'm like, you know what? You don't have to weed today. You can do it tomorrow. You don't have to scrub the steps. It's okay, you know? But in Italy, it's different. Like they achieve all these things, but at a much more relaxed and peaceful place, right? And it's like my favorite story of working in Italy is we were going to do a show. I was with my manager. And I was like, you know, I know the show, we have to be there in an hour, but I'm starving. Can we just stop? And like, I just want to like get a little something to eat, you know, and I'm not ready for the show. I'm like this. And they're like, yeah, no problem. We sit down, we eat like this 3-course meal. There's like all the food, wine. We're there for like 2 hours. And I'm like, guys, the doors are open. They're like, they can't do the show without you. It's okay. I'm like, yes, but I'm not okay with this. Like, I'm not okay. I'm going to have a heart attack. And they were like, you need to relax. And I did. I relaxed. We got there. I was late, but nobody cared.
Right.
We did the show. But I was like, this would never happen in America. My phone would be exploding. Everybody would be yelling at me. I would be yelling at me. Like,
There's also something to like East Coast Italian Americans too, with the time and just the East Coast in general. It's just very like we're up early. Okay, so you grew up in New Jersey and now live in Brooklyn, right?
Yes, I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, in Chambersburg, which was a hardcore Italian enclave. And then I moved to Brooklyn at like, I think I came to New York at 17. I think I was 18, I was in Brooklyn. Trenton is very similar than Brooklyn. It's like a lot of Italians. You can walk to the bakery. Everybody's watching you all the time. Very similar.
Answer whatever comes to your mind first.
Yes. Okay. And okay. So this first question, you've dropped a lot of amazing advice gems throughout this whole episode. But what is, if you had to just say the best advice you've ever gotten, what would that be?
The best advice that I've ever gotten is, and this was in reference to when Sissy was a baby, like when it's in the middle of the night and she wakes up again and you want to scream and cry, open up the window and howl at the moon. And I loved that because to me, it's just like, some things you can't fight. So just howl at the moon. And I do. I howl at the moon now. Sissy and I actually literally howl at the moon. And it feels so good because you're just releasing that moment. So when life gets crazy, howl at the moon.
That sounds very freeing.
It is. Okay. My neighbors think I'm insane, but
they need to help them.
Okay, what is your current nighttime moisturizer that you're using right now?
My current nighttime moisturizer is from Thomas Roth, I think, and it's like Hydra Quench.
Oh,
yes.
I love a Hydra Quench.
Yes, I love it. It feels nice.
Yeah.
What is the best thing that you're either reading or watching right now?
What am I watching? I am watching, oh my God, Tyler Henry, The Medium. It's like connecting with he's a medium.
Oh, is this the new one on Netflix?
Yes. Oh my God. I can't remember what it's called, but Tyler Henry's new Netflix show. It's insane. And I need him to be my new best friend.
Oh my God. I've seen clips of it and I haven't heard anyone talk about it. So I'll check it out.
It's epic. I watched it all in 2 nights, crying.
Oh my God.
Okay, you have the coolest naturally curly hair. So what are you doing? What are you doing for it? What's your curly hair routine? What are your products?
Well, I use the Lust line, which is the Love Yourselves, Love Your Curls line. And
it's this
line from Canada. It's amazing. It's woman run. It's free of all the nasty business that you don't want in your head. It's simplified. All you need is the curl cream, though I love all their other products. But I think what most curly people need to know, especially like this kind, is the cut. It's all about the cut. And I just had mine cut at Ouidad. I'm probably saying it wrong. Ouidad, Ouidad in the city by Justin. And it's just amazing. It's amazing. I've got like this nice layered, so it frees the curls, but it's all about just when that hair is sopping wet, pulling through your product, creating your groups, gently squishing them up and then letting it live its life. But I love the Lust brand.
It's cool. It's really cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah, because otherwise they get weighed down and I have like a triangle head. So
that's what I have right now.
Yeah, yes, I have it right now too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
I had it up until 2 weeks ago.
Great. Is there a woman on social media or in your life or that is really inspiring you right now?
You know who inspires me? Train with Joan on Instagram. She is a much older lady. I think she's probably in her 70s. And she has, in the past 10 years, completely transformed her health and her body through lifting weights. And she's literally looks like your grandma, except she can like deadlift 175 pounds. And I find her to be amazing.
Train with Joan.
Yes.
Love.
That's so cool.
She's amazing.
I remember I used to take a yoga class. There was like a 90-year-old woman in it and she would always show up in the coolest outfit. And I was always like, that's what I want to be. Like, that's what I would like to be too.
If you can't stop, it can't catch you.
Right.
That's true.
And where can we follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all of the above at Angie Pontani, ANGIE PONTANI.
Amazing. Angie, thank you so much for being here. You're
Angie.
The coolest.
Oh, thank you guys. I'm sorry. I know I run at the mouth.
We
love it.
We could talk to you all day.
Seriously, we could. You're so fascinating and so fun.
Oh, good. Excellent. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, shut up. You've been talking for like 3 minutes.
No. And seriously, the next time you have a show in New York, Alex and I will be there front row.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Things have been a little slow to pick up here, but I think this summer we'll get back in the swing. But it was like the first run of shows that I had booked back at Joe's Pub for a week. We did 2 of them and then they all got canceled because of Omicron. So I'm just like, New York, come on. So
we're so close. We're so
close.
So
this summer.
Yeah.
Right.
Great. Well, we'll be there.
Excellent. Thank you both for having me.
Thank you.
Angie.